So, Lori, one of the things you said is how to prepare for the level of excitement for holiday parties and what's happening, kind of what the holidays bring, finding calm in the hustle bustle, as you said, and the high energy around the holidays and the people in the gathering, everything there is. It's like a really kind of loud, large, lots of people situation.
Totally, yes.
Anything else you want to elaborate on that?
I mean, amazingly enough, I kind of got like direction this morning from Jenna in camp about how to take on this holiday, which was great. You know, it was unexpected to get that answer before the podcast today.
So I think where we're going to start with that is kind of breaking it down into sections, which will lead to some of your other questions, like home with guests, parties, get-togethers, getting ready for events, talking about out and about in the real world, shopping, and all the kind of stimulation that happens with this holiday season. Then, of course, with school, with performances and events and classroom parties. And honestly, the change in routine can be really tough for our kids. So this is where we pull in and really get those calendars out. Because, you know, I'm a firm believer in, you know, structure, consistency, routine, predictability. And so how can we do that during the holiday season? Number one, it would definitely be planning in advance. So if you know you have a party, if you know the classroom has an event, all the things, put it on the calendar. And not just you do it, have your kids do it. So now we're helping them get ready for these events. Be upbeat and positive. I know you have anxiety over this yourself because a lot of our kids are super sensitive and they get very overwhelmed. But the key for your child is to be upbeat and positive, but be incredibly realistic. So knowing your child's baseline of communication is important. We're never going to use some of these kind of taxing situations as a time to really kind of push forward if they're not comfortable. If anything, you can certainly implement strategies, and we're going to talk about that, but it's kind of respecting where they're at, because these are the times when there's a lot going on, the loud, the large, lots of people, expectations, routines, everything changes. So if you're going to use that time as to ball forward, sometimes it creates more anxiety. So if anything, just know their baseline, work with that. And as they're doing well, you bridge up to kind of more of a, you know, a more of a kind of stimulating situation to get more progress. So you certainly can do that. And I think it's important. You can kind of think about a situation. So let's talk about the hustle bustle of what you're thinking about. Like, give me an example, one of you, that, you know, the hustle bustle or something that stands out.
Yeah, I love some of the mantras I'm going to keep using. The loud, large, lots of people. That describes our child's, one of her biggest challenges is when there is a big event. So I'm thinking about a big event. It could be a holiday event at school where she loves school. She's mute at school, but has tons of friends, very non-verbally social. One of those professional mimes, I'd say, where she is right now. But when events at school, I'm now learning, she's communicating to us extreme discomfort, like crawling on the floor, licking my arm, trying to physically hide behind me, whining, pulling on us, wanting to go home. And so I'm just wondering, in those situations, I need some strategies because it amps up my own anxiety too, because seeing her struggling and feeling pressure to do the right thing. So what are some strategies in that moment that I can do to help bring down her or increase her comfort and help her tolerate versus just leaving the situation?
Basically you're talking about like some of the events, the classroom parties and things like that. In terms of the parties, planning ahead of what's going to be, I would want to get an idea of what that schedule is. It's not just a party, but what's going to happen. Giving children kind of roles where maybe she brings something is helpful because that's a nonverbal. Allowing her that warm up, as you said, sensitive. So if the party starts at 10, getting permission to get to the school early, walking around, go with a friend. It's amazing when kids go with their friends, how much it lowers their anxiety. And now they got their buddy, seated with that buddy, paired with that buddy, doing a project with that buddy. That is really, really important. And sometimes it's also siblings. If your child has a sibling, bringing a sibling to sometimes can help some of the families because now they're like got their like sibling with them as almost their security. And they're often proud of their siblings. So that can be very helpful to a lot of families for sure. Also knowing what strategies in advance you're going to use. So I'll give you an example. What is going to happen? We're going to be talking a lot about action plans today. Sandwich questions, knowing kind of where are you going, who's going to be there, what can they ask, what is your answer, What can they ask? Just knowing that, and even though that she's mute, there's ways to get ready for this. By planning ahead on those common questions that others can ask, she will be more ready in a fun, upbeat manner. So being on the lookout. You might see other parents there. What could they say? Oh, how are you? How's school? Are you excited about the holiday? Something, getting ready for that. And you acting as that verbal intermediary. So rather than expecting her to be verbal, maybe you are a verbal intermediary to her where you re-ask it as a choice. Tell me, that's okay. Maybe she can't do that. Maybe her anxiety, like you said, is so high. So maybe being nonverbal there, it's okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, you have to be okay that she isn't verbal in that moment. I know everyone's like, I need her to be verbal. I need her to be verbal. What I've learned is that kind of feeling kind of projects to the child. And when that feeling comes like that high expectation, it makes them more anxious. I think for the highly sensitive individual, really arriving early, having a space that's not in the middle of the classroom, but on the side of the classroom, and again, going with a friend are really great things. And if your child gets overwhelmed with attention on them, which it sounds like that's what you're saying, and we're talking about, we have to be careful that the teacher isn't putting undue pressure on your child, which they should know not to, but let her be on the back steps a little bit. Maybe giving her a role of handing something out with a buddy or showing something to somebody. Be okay with that, because the goal is to get through the event in a comfortable way where they can then see themselves that way. And I'll tell you why. There's a statement called fear begets fear. What that means is if I feel fear, I will remember fear. So if we, the first party that we're getting, using our strategies, getting ready for it, bridge down a bit so that we get through it in a safe way and a comfortable way, that will set the stage for other events throughout the year because she remembers herself feeling more comfortable rather than anxious and overwhelmed. Any questions on that?
No, I think just to add to it though, like this morning when I had submitted that question, this morning I kind of went over a scenario yesterday where we went to my sister's house. It's a big party. Half of the people are relatives that my daughter's comfortable with, half are not. And I think maybe I could have been better prepared by having something that she could have brought to share. Like she's working on this rainbow loom chain that she's just trying to make it super, super ridiculously long. And just having her bring some kind of prop to get her engaged with the others. Or she really liked Pictionary in camp yesterday with the other students. And I wanted to get that going, but there wasn't the supplies and everything available. But yeah, I think like having props. Was
we call that absolutely. So to divert from the classroom party to a family related party, that's very different, because with the classroom party, having something to work on that the teacher sets up, that's what we're thinking about. So that's their prop, their task, and that becomes their visual focus. When you talk about holiday parties or gatherings, yes, I call it a bag of props. Think of a knapsack filled with their favorite toys or activities. For an older child, it might be something on their phone. Maybe it's a photo album of their recent trip. Maybe it's, they went, play tennis with their dad and they kind of had an experience and they have photos of something. Whatever it could be becomes the focus. And again, being on the lookout in a fun, upbeat way of what could somebody ask and be ready for it. One of the beauties of CommuniCamp is not just that you're learning, but your children are learning. And one of the things that's really big, I call it the golden rules, is demystifying this for your children. There's so many families that don't talk about it. They're afraid to talk about the pink elephant in the room and mutism. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about them not talking. No, you've got to talk about it in terms of comfort and the bridge and where they are. And they'll feel safe with that. So having a conversation, your child, you said, is 8, right?
Yes, right.
So 8 years old. I mean, talk about it. Talk about going to visit her aunt and how she'll feel about it and some of the things you'll do to help with comfort and get her opinion on it. That's powerful. Because then she was involved in it. Like, hey, we're going to get there early because that's going to really help us. Helps me too, because I can be really like, when I see people I haven't seen in a while, gets me a little nervous. Like, open up to your own fears and where you're nodding. What are you thinking?